the first thing to say, I suppose, is I'm Barrie Cabena, and I was the organist here a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when I turned 80, there was a concert of my compositions in the sanctuary, and a little party afterwards, which was the best part, of course. And the council, or whatever they were called in those days, very generously gave me a title to go with it, which is Organist Emeritus. So that's what I am. And I suppose I could say that I have no responsibilities or duties attached to the title. It's just a title and an honour, I suppose, in itself, but not with obligations. So these are staff interviews that you're doing, I understand.
Well, they're interviews of a whole bunch of people, and you have been staff.
I was thinking
you're in the club.
that seeing I'm not on the staff, I could go home now. No,
I'm sorry, I got you. I trapped you.
Yes. So as to what I do now is, well, when Michael Bloss was here, Sherry and I sang in the choir for a while, for a year anyway, if not more, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And then when when Martin Anderley was here, he used to use me from time to time to accompany things, and once or twice to conduct while he accompanied. So I was a bit of a handyman then. And then when Irene came, well, before Irene came, there was a hiatus. She was hired, but she wasn't free to come for I think that must have been about a year. And I filled in for a large part of that time until I got sick and couldn't do it anymore. And then Fred Graham filled in from then on. So I had duties in that interim period.
Yeah.
And then when Irene came, she had a background that doesn't fill in all the gaps that she's found here. So I've tried to be helpful in filling in those gaps with advice and assistance in one way and another. And also in playing when she was unable to be here.
Yeah.
So I continue to do the same sorts of things. A handyman, you might say.
I mean, a handyman and also a composer. I know that, I've sat through multiple of your own original stuff as well.
Well, yes, I think when I was organist here, I wrote a lot of music, which was used. But since then, I've been asked by various people for music, for various occasions, and I've very gladly filled in the gaps. For example, with Harmon Blom's funeral, I wrote an anthem that the choir sang on that occasion, and there have been other occasions, happier ones, fortunately, when I've written music at the request of members of the congregation or to fill in needs that the congregation had for a specific occasion. Yes.
What?
Yes.
Barry, I was just going to ask, was the first time that you came to Dublin happened to be when you were hired on here, or did you know about Dublin before that?
I knew about Dublin before for a number of connections. First of all, when Jerry Manning was the organist here, he came to me for lessons from time to time in Waterloo. So I got to know him and therefore heard about Dublin Street from him. And then I came here and played for his wedding. I don't remember when that was, but that's just before he left here and went to St. George's. And one of my students at Laurier reminded me that he gave his graduation recital here.
Oh, wow.
I have no recollection of it, to be honest, but he used this church as a place where he could give his recital. And then in 1980, chronologically I'm all over the shop here, but
Yeah.
in 1980 I was appointed to the Guelph Spring Festival committee because 1980 was Healy Willan's centenary, and they decided then to have an organ competition, playing pieces and improvising in his honour, and they gave a big prize or prizes for that occasion. And so I was on the committee for that, and I was also the chair of judges. So I knew about the Guelph Spring Festival, and I knew about Guelph even more so as a result of that. But also one of the judges, who was a close friend of mine from Montreal, gave a recital here, which of course I attended. So that was the third time I think that I've actually been in this church, if I can count correctly.
Yeah.
So yes, I did know before. And then in 1995, a colleague and good friend applied for the job here.
Okay.
And asked if I would be a referee for him, which I very gladly was. And somewhere around that time, one of the auditioning committee came to me on the sly and asked if I was interested, because he happened to know I was free at that time. I didn't have a church job. And I told him that I was quite interested, on condition that my colleague and friend got the first choice, first chance at the job.
Yeah.
The committee didn't want him, as it happened, quite irrespective of my being available. So then it came my turn to audition. And the choir must have enjoyed my wisecracks, because they voted in favour.
Wow.
And so in '95 I came here in fall, and stayed until 2001.
Wow. Incredible. Very impressive.
So that was a nice period. I mean, it wasn't a nice period. We had lots of ups and downs in that time. But I certainly enjoyed the work I did here.
Good. And perhaps you can tell me a little bit more about your history. You know, I know you've been composing and writing and playing in a lot of different venues in a lot of different places. You know, preceding, entering church life and stuff like that, and doing it for Hold Up. A bunch of different venues, a bunch of different people. So perhaps you could take me through, the time since you sort of graduated school and sort of what you were up to through that.
Well, I had several church jobs in Melbourne, in Australia, where I was born.
Okay.
And I sang in the cathedral choir there every day. They had daily services. I didn't sing on Sundays, but I sang on 5 weekdays.
Oh, wow.
For several years. And that was a huge experience. I learned a vast amount of the repertoire. And curiously, I sang countertenor, as my son, who's known here, Daniel, does professionally now. Then I went to England and studied at the Royal College of Music with a number of famous and distinguished and enjoyable instructors, and got qualified, whatever that means. And in 1957 I was appointed organist at First St Andrew's United Church in London.
Wow.
And I stayed there for 18 years.
Beautiful.
With lots of adventures, including the installation of a huge new organ in the rear gallery, which was quite revolutionary in Ontario. Quite a revolution in Ontario. And I gave a recital every single week.
Wow.
For 7 years in that church, and had a huge lot of fun. We did concerts once a month, and 2 operas a year.
Wow.
With children. For 7 years we did that. And I was appointed to Laurier in 1970. but stayed on at First Andrews till 1975.
Oh wow! Couldn't give it up. Too much fun.
Well, it was too much fun, and it was just a superb organ to have at my disposal.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I married and had our first child, and my wife and I, with our first child, would travel back and forwards from London to Waterloo in the snow, in the winter, and the ice. And twice on 401, I went around 3 times on the highway and finished up facing an oncoming transport truck. How I escaped, I haven't the faintest idea, but, well, I'm still here, aren't I? So, but that was enough. So in 75, I thought, no more risks.
Okay, fair enough.
So we moved to Waterloo.
Oh, wow.
And then I had 2 churches in Kitchener, 2 Anglican churches. Before coming here.
Okay.
Yes. Is that a complete story?
Yeah.
Complete enough?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's interesting to hear where you've been, some of the stuff you did. Yeah. I think, what was the last question I had there? I'm forgetting.
Last question is what I see as a future for this church.
For Dublin, yeah. I'll let you.
Well, that's tricky. I've found this place to be very welcoming and full of friendly people, and I would like to think that that will continue into the future unabated. But now with an increase, with the new move to make it more inclusive, that carries on in the same direction, only more so, which I think is wonderful. And the arts have always been fairly, especially music, have been a fairly strong component of what goes on in this church. Yeah. And I would like to think that that can continue, that the standard of music would be always high, perhaps increasingly varied as the various organists since I was here have tried to make it. I think that's wonderful, as long as the standard, so to speak, the standard of literacy, shall we say, is maintained as that process takes place. And I think, I don't have an idea what the future will mean in terms of the building prospect that looms.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that that will support what I've just said, but also enhance it. I'm sure it can do just that. So, although I'm ancient and may not be around to enjoy the rewards of that, I can see that it could be very exciting. And what I think especially like is the theological freedom within this congregation, within the preaching that goes on here. The non-dogmatic approach, the non-fundamentalist approach, the freedom there, and in spirituality, which happens in the course of the normal congregational life, but also in some special places like the contemplation group and so forth. Yeah. I see that as being a very healthy, ongoing part of the future here. Yeah. So that people, whatever their persuasion might be, will feel welcome and comfortable here. We have a friend who came here not so long ago. She's been here many times, but came here and said, "I'm an atheist." And I think she expected everybody to be rather shocked, but nobody was shocked. I'm sure there are other atheists here, you're not the only one, that feel comfortable here. So I think all kinds of people can feel comfortable in the environment that this church has remarkably created.
Yeah. That's a beautiful vision, and let's see it fulfilled.
Well, I'm expecting it to be able to see it fulfilled.
Well, continue fulfilling it, as they say.
Yes.
Continue the fulfillment process.
Yes.
Anyhow, thank you so much for your time today, Barry.
It's a pleasure. And it's a pleasure to be part of this outfit. And I should also mention that I hope that this congregation will continue to allow me to be the resident limerick writer.
Well, I believe that job is very secured.
Is it all
All right.
good?
All right.